Hey everybody, Texas Trucker here, Lance's Performance Shop along with Mopars.com. Thursday night after work, 8:51, and it's still broad daylight. Absolutely love it. The best part about June, before the solstice, is the days just keep getting longer. Now, what are we doing? This was kind of going to be a tool haul, and I guess in a sense it still is, but there were roughly 3 items. 2 of them go together really well, and one of them is kind of like an outlier. And I got to thinking about it, and I don't really, like see a lot on this, and I thought, it might better serve people if we just had a standalone video. So that's what we're going to do here, and we'll try to maybe stick it on a Wednesday if we don't have, working on an old car or something. So, has absolutely nothing to do with the Proto pliers, but they've been fantastic. What have I been doing with them? I've been using the wire cutter part. So, what wire, you ask? Why on earth would you use that for, stranded wire? I'm using it for picture wire, picture frame wire, whatever you want to call it, and I hang signs with it. And you hear when I get 20 or 30 minutes, I'm like, yeah, what do I do? And I do that, so it's worked out quite nicely. Now, what we have is from Astro. I picked it up from Zorro. Obviously, it was going to be a Zorro tool haul, but I'll have it linked down below. As you should know by now, I'm a very thrifty dude. And we don't pay retail, we wait for sales, and then we pile discounts on top of that. So retail price for this item, that's going to be item number 74310, you would be looking at just shy of $50. Now that's Zorro pricing, so this could range. You might find some retailers with it like 70, 75. You could also find it lower, you never know, that's why you got to shop around. But what did we do? We took $12.48 off, so we picked this up for $37.45. You're probably saying to yourself, well, what is it? Well, before I show you, a reminder, I use timestamps, so if you're just interested in comparisons or something crazy like that, you can make do there. But what it is, I'm going to bring the box into the frame now. It is a 10-piece 3/8 drive metric 6-point flex socket set. Right now, comment section, what do you call these? Okay, are they swivels, floppies, universals, flex? If you use a specific designation for chromes, do you change that for impacts? Wobblies? It's always interesting, and the vernacular, region to region, country to country, even brand to brand, kind of depending on what you grew up with or was introduced to, for the first time. That's probably what you stick with. Whether that be a parent, grandparent, uncle, who knows, aunt, mom, whatever it might be, or an employer or trade school type of a thing. That tends to be what people, if you're introduced to this as a flex socket set, it's probably what you're going to roll with, right? But always curious to kind of see how that falls. But back to this, the meat and potatoes of it. Basically, we're going 10 to 19 with no skips. Yes, there's a 16. Yes, there's an 18. And they are, again, metric 6-point. I'm kind of the mindset 12 is not a bad thing to do with flex sockets if they're truly needed. And you think, oh, you're going to round it off. It's like, if you're using a flex socket, and this is a bad habit people get into, once you have a flex socket, especially with impacts, I'm guilty of this, you kind of just use them by default, even when they're not needed, especially when they're new and they're not excessively floppy. There comes a point in their life cycle, and they all wear out. Where they get really floppy, and it's kind of more of an annoyance than a convenience at that point. But what I try to force myself to do, I consider this a specialty item, and if a standard socket fits, whether it's you have to drop down to a semi-deep or a shallow, or if you have extra stubby shallow things and they fit, try to do that. This is sort of a last resort type of a thing. And there's certain applications, where this is literally all you're going to be able to do if you intend to use a ratchet. So, why Astro? Well, if you recall, I live in the 60s and 70s, 50s some too, and that's where I prefer to be, and everything I'm doing in those eras is old school. It's SAE, imperial, fractional, whatever you want to call it. And same thing at work. There's none of this modernized, worldwide, global junk that's forced down my throat, so the problem is, I can't escape it. Late model stuff, it's metric. New crud, Harbor Freight machines or toolboxes or anything, it's pretty much metric. Sometimes you get lucky and stuff crosses over, but sometimes you don't. So this is kind of a deal, here at the house. I kind of, lighten up on my, stringent standards, I guess you would call them, and I'm more willing to experiment. I also really want to experiment, try different things out, see how it stacks up, how it compares. These could be fantastic, these could be terrible. What will tell us? Time. Time is the only thing that will tell us. Bench impression gives you a good indicator of what to expect. But ultimately, until I've used these for quite some time, and I'm not talking like a month, you know, it's like there's not much. You've got complete garbage that'll fail in that time, but the vast majority of products are going to pass that threshold, you know, even 3 months, 6 months. I feel like you're going to get a year unless you're just like abusing these things, putting them on an impact type of deal. But ultimately, like over time, you know, I don't care that we got a good deal on this. I don't care if it was retail for $50. I want these to last. So let's see if Astro has anything to tell us. We've kind of covered everything here. Now this is kind of funky. If you're like, hey, what's going on there? It looks like they're in a foam tray. They totally are. I'm not gonna lie, while that is really nice and it's in my color scheme, the other issue there is Astro, I believe for SAE, uses like a pale red, or at least it looks pale red online. Here lately I brought some stuff in that I was like really worried about the color of, and it turns out the stock photos just suck, and in person it's great. So it could be a vibrant red, it could be rose red, I don't know, I don't have it here. But it's a win that is blue. It's just like this profile here is pretty much the set, right? So instead of being on an 8-inch Ernst rail, it's in this big of a profile, which kind of wastes some space. Now, if this is a big heavy use item, you know, or you like it being featured type of a deal, or you've got the space, maybe you're putting it in a cart, maybe you're putting it in your main box, whatever you're doing, if you have the space and you like foam, it's a win. Personally, while I think that's super cool of Astro to do, and I believe they have these labeled as well, it's a situation where I might prefer to like save another $10 and get these like just bagged in a box or on a, you know, spring steel rail that they just throw in for the price, and then have the foam as an accessory. Who would buy it? I don't know. Packaging and aesthetics here, I see why they do it. I'm just saying, like, I might have rather paid $25 for these instead of $37. So it goes both ways. But again, part number 74310, we've got it linked down below. Right here, it's going to include your 3H drive Flex Universal. Now they've added Universal in on us, so Astro's using Flex and Universal. Apologies to everyone that was going to say Swivel. It's 10 to 19, kind of the profile, and that's it. It looks like the rest of the goodness will have to be unlocked. And this is your side profile as we unbox our Flex Swivel sockets. I'm sorry, Flex Universal sockets by Astro vernacular. The cool thing here, again, when you unbox something, when you showcase anything, you got to think outside the box. While you might just toss this, and what I mean by this, I mean this plastic lid. Think of the guy in a body shop, okay? Think of someone in a dusty environment, you know, maybe there's a guy that's, you know, like cutting hay or something, you know, and he's, you know, got to constantly repair some old antiquated equipment. Will they get dirty? Yes, but you can mitigate that. Like, let's say it turns out, you know, that you're never using the 16 much or something, but then one day your truck has an issue and you need it. It's going to be mint if you keep that cover on, right? It's going to take all the dust. It'll look like junk and trash, and it might get some in it, but for the most part, you lift it off, you're home free. How many people actually keep the plastic in the real world where these are being used? Probably less than 10%, and that's being generous. But it is something you have to think about. You know, granted, it's probably realistically just there for packaging, but just like with the icon stuff, you can kind of step back and say, hey, you know, if I leave that on, it's going to keep all that crud in, you know, out of my joints. So, or the body of the socket, depends how everything's stacked. Now, this may be difficult to see, you know. Well, you can actually see it really good there. So, could they have done contrasting colors? Would have looked sick in the blue? Absolutely. But here's what they did. And why it's like this, I don't know. But 10, 11, 12, that's kind of awkward. But this part I love, 13 through 19. We're going left to right, ascending, just like you would the alphabet or the number system, right? So if it could have been 10, 11, 12, I'd be happy. Now, that said, I don't know that there's a high probability that I'm going to keep that foam, which sucks because it is actually, I mean, I'd consider it if you got anything from Capri. Some of the stuff I get from them has this foam in it. I'd say it's very similar to that. Now, holding this up, we're going to just go to the big one here, the 19. If I dial her in full zoom as best I can do for you, you're going to have 19 in the foam. You're going to have an etching here. I assume that's an etching. Feels engraved, but I guess it's raised. I don't know. 19 millimeter Astro logo and name, and then a standalone part number. And if I can pry this thing out of here, good lord. You know what? They're here. Let's use them. Thank you, Protos. The side note, I have used them a little bit like as a standard plier, and they've been pretty good to me. Doing random junk like this, really, but surprisingly super good at cutting that picture wire. So this is the design right here. The packaging, something I forgot to read of all things, and how I remembered it, I don't know. But if this bottom bullet point flex joint bolts, that's kind of confusing, have Loctite applied from the factory. So if you're that guy and you're like, I gotta fix this thing, put some Loctite, well, it's already done. So you can wait to do it. Now, if I get this to where you can kind of see it and appreciate it a little bit better, you can see a little hex profile there. So if this backs out over time, that's what you're gonna do. Obviously, hex profiled here as well. There's pros and cons there. You can kind of dial it in, you can retighten it. That's the main thing, because again, these do over time, especially maybe your ratchet, you know, like, well, it's not technically an impact. It still spins pretty good, a lot faster than you can do by hand. Just like anything over time, it's going to sag, it's going to back out. Whatever negatives you can think of, they're going to take place. Now, drive end here, pretty nice. We got the cutout on all four corners. Most importantly, what? It's aggressively chamfered. That's a win for me. The articulation, okay, you kind of hit right here. It's a minor thing, but it's kind of an annoyance, right? Note that we don't do it here. This going up 45 to close to 90 as we can, like obviously it's bottoming out, but on this one, when I just go reverse course here, it like hits before we get to the max point. Now I think I can force this, but it was making contact kind of awkwardly right there, so I'm not sure what's up on that front, but it is minor, but again, worth noting. 6-point finish out, that's actually not bad, especially when you consider we gave $37 for this set, and it's in a foam tray, so put 10 bucks on the foam tray at minimum. Foam, you would be surprised what people charge for that stuff. These are pretty reasonably priced sockets, I do believe. Right here, that's the Astro warranty. Yeah, I think you have to fill that out. Don't hold me to, I'm not into that stuff. Kind of gets annoying. If you're worried about that, yeah, I'm sure there's probably companies where you might have a little less hassle. I don't think that's going to take a ton of your time, but at this price point, you know, this is something that you're either going to say, hey, that was great, you know, we got that for 30 bucks basically, what a steal. You know, broke my most frequently used sizes. I'm just going to go ahead and see if, I'm not even going to try to get replacements, you know, I'm just going to go ahead and buy a new set and double up. Some of you might be disappointed by them to the point you're like, okay, no, not even warranting that junk, you know, I'm going to sell it as is, give it away, you know, whatever it might be, and move on, try something else. But they're pretty much, I mean, every time I've seen a swivel, it's very, very similar designs, but aside from this kind of hitting and making contact, you can kind of see the articulation. You know, I didn't grab a ratchet, that was stupid. But, the big thing that bothers me, you'll note here on the chrome job, if we go by this fastener here and I spin around, we've gone 90, 180, 270, 360. Up top, there is 0 size marking. I'm not talking laser etching, I'm talking stamping. We've got nothing. Coming down here to the body, got that. And again, I can feel it, but that's not really a deep stamp. And I'm afraid that's going to come off, and probably fairly quickly. It's funny, you would always assume, since it's especially on the 3/4, since it's the fat part, that's what would hit and take all the damage, right? A lot of times you wind up dragging like the body here, especially on an impact, and that's sort of what gets worn. But that's what she looks like. That is our big one, the 19, again, all the way down to 10, no skips, 3/8 drive. Gonna tuck that sucker there right now, because we're gonna spice this up a little bit with some drill bits from Hercules. No, I'm sorry, a bit set from Hercules. Did I blow my cover? Maybe I did, because that's totally not what this is. This was just concealing 2 more swivels. Now, this is a very contrasting pair that we have here. And if you're thinking like, oh, that's 1/2-inch drive. Nope, this is a drive side. It's 3/8 drive, just like our Astros. This is 3/4, which basically, you know, the equivalent to the 19mm we just took a look at. And then this one is old. It's from Bonney, and one side's really, really floppy, the other is really, really stiff. And new old stock, you know, on that one. And then this one right here is from SK America, SK before things got questionable. So you can kind of see there she's been used a bit, but the chrome's still fantastic, as you should expect from Super Chrome. Right here, let's do the same test. Went all the way shoulder to shoulder there. That one's sort of hitting, but it would also end its travel there. I'm not sure that the Astros may not get a little bit more of an angle. Coming in this way, again, you can kind of see the articulation. These are still stiff for what it's worth. We've had these for quite some time. Just want to do a side-by-side, Astro in the left hand, SK in the right hand. Overall, interestingly enough, the SK seems to have a slightly taller fastener portion, right? Your socket body. And then the Astro actually has a taller sort of drive end, if you will. So they're almost equal in OAL, or overall length, but the SK is going to be a little bit longer. Again, that could be a detriment, it could be a benefit, it just depends, and it's probably the opposite of whatever you have, so keep that in mind. Issue here, you know, I'm sure they still make these and you can get them replaced. It's probably Global Materials. I don't know the backstory. It's not going to be the same ever, you know, so if we do use that and shatter it, and yeah, I'm thinking we can still get something. I just don't know if it's going to be of equal value or performance to the original. Right here, the Bonnies. This one has not been used. It was literally just brought in. I think I did a video on it a few nights ago. It looks used, but again, it's just old. Right here, very, very swivelly on this front. And then, yes, we articulate side to side. This one's 12 point. Something I love about these. Again, we've got the Astro, the SK, and the Bonney. That sidewall on the Bonney, ignore the fact that it's not 3/4 or 19mm or anything, it's dwarfed by those. But the sidewall is just so thin. That's why we have these at work. Granted, they're old, you know, that's probably what we had, but there's a reason they're still used, and it's because of the sidewall. Very, very handy in super ridiculously tight confines, where you literally, usually it's an impact socket, you can't like wedge in between some confined space in the fastener and nest it right. Believe me, I've got about 4 pains in my butt, and you've got to have a thin wall or it's not happening, or you're going to sit there and like spin it by hand with a wrench on the open end for an eternity. So, and what do? It's not an air ratchet, but hey, you know, they only crack every once in a while, stress fracture. But I think the Astro might be like a midpoint between the SK. I think the SK is going to have slightly, and I do mean slightly, like this is probably just a couple thousandths here, it's just ever so slightly bigger on that front. But yeah, pretty solid. I think again you can kind of see like the SK, since this one is, it's not really that old either. The chrome is still fantastic. I think it does have a bit more luster than the Astro. Not to say this one's bad, just this is what I have for comparative purposes. So how does it look compared to the Bonney? Dadgum, this, I'll tell you, I don't often see new Bonney stuff. I found an extension we'd never used, a really long quarter drive at work a couple years ago. But dadgum, you know, for something that old, the chrome still pretty solid. Now this one's got a bit more luster, yes, we could probably spit shine this sucker, but yeah, I think for the money we did pretty good, and that's what I'm concerned with, that's what I care about, and that's why I'm happy. So ultimately, here's what's going to happen. These are either going to be okay, I'm going to be very happy with them being okay for the ridiculously low price of $37.45, or they're going to suck. And my hope is that they don't suck. I'm happy with anything aside from these sucking. What would suck be? That would be they break, they don't fit, the articulation is just not quite where I need it to be, whatever it might be. Come up with your own litany of issues and kind of just go to town with it. But here's the tin, significantly shorter there on the socket body, which is interesting. You'd think that would kind of be like a uniform status. Now, that has no interference. This is smooth. Yeah, it seems to be the side width, you know, like the hex for the fastener. It just kind of like seems to have a little bit higher of a profile. So case in point, again, look at the offshoot angle here. If I tilt back to middle, back over, like see how that's almost like cannon fodder, you know, true 90. And then over here, it's just up and away type of a thing. So I think that must be consistent across the set. If it's not, 10 and 19 share it, so I would assume the rest do. But I really, outside of my biggest complaint here, I can't fault the foam, we've discussed that, but I just wish it was stamped. You know, here on the backside, laser etching is cool. Engraving lightly like that is cool. But what's really going to stand the test of time is a very, very nice stamping. And that's what I personally would prefer, particularly down over here. Now, to Astro's credit, I love what they've done because they don't have this upside down. They didn't do anything stupid. Outside of somebody that embeds magnets and bolt heads, which means they spend a lot of time and bought a lot of fastener sizes they probably don't frequently see, sort of threaded magnets in, you know, or adhesive epoxied them. Everyone's going to store them either in something like this or on a rail. And if you put them on a rail, you need the font facing up because, again, the drive side would be going that direction. So these meet my criteria there as well. But yeah, what I want to know from you does not have to be 3/8. I believe they've got these in quarter. I don't know if they have them in half. I've not seen them. It could just be they don't pop up and suggest it or something, and I've, quite frankly, not going to purchase them in half. Again, just like with impacts, I kind of like take that. That's getting a little bit more serious workloads there, you know, and so I kind of tend to stick to what I know. Now, that said, if these turn out to impress me here and there comes a 1/2 inch or they have one, at that point in time, like, hey, you know, this is like 1/5 of the price of what I was going to buy. I think, based on the 3/8, I'm going to give them a whirl. That's a very real possibility. But what I want to know from you, whether it's, again, SAE, metric, 3/8, or quarter, if you've had, and I'm sure a lot of you have in some iteration of these sets, these Astro Swivels, what do you think of them? How do they compare to what you had prior? Or some of you, again, maybe you loved these and, you know, you lost them, they're stolen. You know, you sold them off, gave them to a buddy, something, you decided to replace it with a new set, they're out of stock, you grab something else. Whatever the story might be, how do these explicitly compare to what you've used, what you're using? Did you move on to a different brand? Did you wind up, let's say that you got these in metric like I just did, and your SAE swivels just hit the breaking point, they were all stress fractured, they were a mix match set anyway. Did you like these enough to buy the Astro SAE equivalents, or were you thinking, yeah, you know, they're okay, especially for the money, but I'm going to try something else? Let me know, let the comments section know, because again, by me breaking this down and doing this particular item, we can specifically focus on it, and I think that'll help people out that are on the fence. And most importantly, if you come in and you're like, oh, I've used those things for 3 years, they're rock stars, they perform just as good as my blank. Or, hey, you know, they're not as good as this brand, but for the money, they've been pretty solid, I'd recommend them. Real world experience, it speaks volumes, it helps people out, that's what we're trying to do here. So, like I said, I can't sit here and tell you they're great, I can't tell you they're terrible, I've not used them, I don't know. But bench impression, pretty solid. I mean, especially again for the price point. The foam is a nice bonus. Again, I think myself and maybe some of you even would prefer, if given the choice, to save, you know, like $10, $15, $20. But hey, they did a nice job of it. It's a tight fit. Over time, I'm sure it'll kind of loosen up. It is marked, which again, that drives up the cost as well. Color scheme, while I like it, some of you, metric might be red, some of you, you hate blue and red and you want it all black. You know, it's personal preference, it's hard to please everyone. You basically can't. So you'll hit a chord with some and you'll, you know, detract from others. But yeah, I've got the link down below. If you want to give them a go, you might find them elsewhere. But again, main thing, your thoughts, first-hand feedback, maybe a coworker has them. You know, maybe you've got to borrow some, whatever it might be, feel free to share your thoughts. And on that front, I'm going to try to crank out another one here. I've got to go to work really early And it should be a very, it's like a mixed day. There's going to be some good stuff, and there's going to be some really difficult stuff. So there's also early, and that part's kind of. But, anyway, I'm going to try to bust out one more video, and we will call it good. My apologies for not throwing these on a ratchet. I don't know that that's really going to change anything, but metric hardware, no, have none. Can't check fitment for you. I guess I do have a little bit, but it's big and it's really small, so no. But, anyway, with that said, I'm going to try to get this part 2 of this thing cranked out, standalone video too. And let me know on stuff like this, does it help you better to have the specific item with more details, or like it's focused on this? So if you're curious, you can watch it. If you're like, I could care less about these Astro Swivels, I don't need them, don't want them, you know, I'm not going to watch it. That's also a benefit to you. You know, if there's a tool haul and you're like, ooh, you know, wonder what was brought in, and you don't click the timestamps or spoil it or something, it's kind of a service for people that way. So like if you're curious in it, cool, gonna watch that, all about the Astros I was considering. Or it's like, oh, I have those, don't care. You know, funny enough, a lot of times people, you know, that have something watch videos. They're trying to see if you have similar opinions, similar thoughts, experiences, first impressions, what have you. They might have been like, yeah, I thought the same things you did, and then these sucked. So whatever it might be, like I said, share it down below. But with that said, LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all 3 at Lone Star Mopars. If you have not subscribed, I encourage you to do so. If you jump your charger across the creek and ring the bell, YouTube just might notify you. We got new videos every Wednesday and Saturday, 9 a.m. Texas time. And once again, I thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week, and most importantly, I hope I catch you back here for more action from the shop.